Hello everyone, this is Eva and you're watching Israeli startup channel ISUP. So today, HaAretz is up and we're with Orr Hirscharge, who's the tech reporter of HaAretz in the marker. Hello Orr.
Hi Eva, how are you doing?
Really good. And I would love to ask you about HaAretz. Could you please explain more about it?
So HaAretz is the third biggest newspaper in Israel. It's got about 70,000 subscriptions. It's sometimes regarded as somewhat equivalent to the British Guardian or the US New York Times. It's leftists, it's got strong agendas, it's very opinionated, it's saying what it thinks boldly and loudly that everybody would understand our opinions. Sometimes it's regarded as a bit highbrow. That means that our headlines have a bit smaller fonts and women in the pictures in the newspaper usually have a bit more clothes on, but that's how we do things.
Okay, so could you explain to us the marker as well?
So the marker is the financial supplement of HaAretz, and for the last 5 years or 6 years, the marker really took on central issues in the Israeli economy and was trying to create a change where its editors felt a change was needed. There are certain things in the Israeli market that are just not working right. It's not working right because of certain groups that are in control of assets. It might be public assets, it might be governmental assets, it might be just connections between elites, old elites, it might be businessmen that are also controlling the newspapers and are also influencing politicians, and they enable a situation where there's not enough competitiveness and the prices are staying high, and in the end the consumer just pays too much for what he's getting, and there's not enough services given by the government to the citizen. And these are things that need to change, and in some places like in the telecom market, things have already started changing. And in 2011 we saw how there was a big upheaval in Israel, and hundreds of thousands of citizens came out to the streets protesting against rent prices, about prices of milk, of cheese, why they have to spend so much money in supermarkets, why they have to spend so much money on their cellular phone bills. And these things, it takes time, but they have an effect on the long run.
So could you give us what role has HaAretz has to do with?
So let's take the telecom industry. And the telecom industry was controlled by three giants, Cellcom, Orange, and Pelephone. Mm-hmm. And these three companies just divided the market between them very comfortably, each with a 33.3% of the market, and everybody were offering the same prices, and it's been going on for years, and they've been making humongous amounts of money because they were overcharging, and the regulator did nothing because they either had strong influence on the newspapers, and via the newspapers had strong influence on the regulators in the country, and things were not changing, and the market very consciously started an agenda that was calling for the communication minister to change things and to bring in MVNOs and other companies that would bring the prices down, and connectivity fees to bring them down. And it's been a long and hard struggle that while the market was putting out that certain view, competing newspapers were saying there's no problem in the market, you don't know what you're talking about. And in the end, we have now two more operators, that's Hot and Golan. We have a couple of MVNOs, and prices went down drastically. I would say 50%, but sometimes in business accounts it can be even 80% down from what was offered to the Israeli citizens just 2 years ago. And that can be hundreds of dollars per month.
I also want to now cover the part in high-tech scene, because Koreans, they have like really optimistic views about Israeli startup scene, and could you please tell us like...
So I think Israeli high-tech, first, it's doing wonderfully. We're looking at statistics from the last year, we're looking at investments, I'm looking at startups that I'm meeting each day, and I'm blown away. What they're doing is great, but the narrative of how Israel came to be such a powerhouse in terms of technology and even in web technology is not very simple. It's not that you can just say it's chutzpah or some obscure, somewhat racial genetic explanations. There are also forces in the market and certain techniques and strategies that the startups took that helped Israel to become such a powerhouse. And I think something that was a bit overshadowed by other explanations is the fact that Israelis in the early 2000s were starting to go into, were establishing web startups, but these were web startups that did not intend to compete with American startups because they were taking some industries that were a bit shady, that the Americans would not touch. And I'm talking about gambling, and I'm talking about foreign coins exchange, and I'm talking about toolbars, and even in some places porn. And these four sectors actually created what came to be as the companies that espoused later on all these thousands of startups that are dealing with legitimate web companies that we're seeing nowadays, because the skills that were gained by, let's say, gambling companies in marketing, in UI, in even doing DevOps, or how to run a multi-million-dollar international business. These are skills that were gained in businesses where Americans were not willing to compete with the Israeli companies.
What do you think will be needed for Koreans to have like not so over-optimistic view?
I think what's most important is to understand where you have a competitive advantage. And that can be hiding in various places. I think military technologies have created a huge advantage for Israeli companies. People coming out of the technological units in the military gain significant amounts of training, and when they come out to the market, they can use that training, they know certain technologies and they can apply them to the market, and that's one of the benefits and one of the competitive advantages of the Israeli ecosystem. Now, Koreans have to understand what they do better, and I would guess that the fact that Samsung and LG and SK are part of the Korean ecosystem, that means that probably Korean startups should aim at something that has to do with mobile, something that has to be with Asian crowds, something where they'll be the best ones doing it, and they'll have not so many competitors. I don't know, it might be other things. It might be looking into the Chinese market that is huge but still kind of neglected in terms of global startups that are looking into the Chinese market.
Could you tell me more about high-tech sector that you have been writing about? Like, could you tell us maybe the current issues?
So there are, when I'm talking about the high-tech scene in Israel, I'm not just saying, well, look at how marvelous the technologies that are coming out, and look how we sold so many companies to other big international household names. But the questions for us in the market are, how is the technology sector influencing the Israeli economy? And the main problem that we see is that the tech sector, in terms of employees and salaries, is just staying the same size. And it's not just staying the same size, it's also staying the same people. And meaning that these are all the guys that are coming out of the technological units in the army. And usually they're more in the center of Israel, where it's Tel Aviv and its urban surrounding. And it's not spreading out. It's not spreading out both to Arab Israelis, it's not spreading out to Orthodox Jews, it's not spreading out to so many different sectors in the public that would like them to come in, because if we'll not be able to bring in those other sectors into the high-tech section, we'll be in a very, very serious problem, I don't know, 5 years or 10 years or 20 years from today.